Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Honor the Feminine podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Ledford, and we're still playing in the Shame Game series. And this is the 5th episode for the Shame Game series, episode 104, and it's called I'm Broken. In the past, our episodes have been standalone interviews that have been really fun. For this particular Shame Game series, if you go back to episode 100, if you haven't started there, I invite you to start there. There will definitely be nuggets and beautiful things that unfold today. But if you want the whole context, if you go back to episode 100 and listen from there forward to here, that might give you the deepest sense of what we're doing. When I stepped into the Shame Game series, I had this intention of doing 9 episodes, episode 100 through 108. And I thought I would roll them out weekly the way I had the interviews. And that's not the way this has played out. I am so much more committed to being in flow. And so my commitment, instead of my commitment being that I will put an episode out every Wednesday, my commitment has been to continue to sit down to record these episodes and to do them when they feel in flow, when it feels like the right timing for them. And so I've sat down for this particular episode on a number of occasions. And today it feels in flow. We're starting our episodes with an oracle card right now. And for this series, the Mother Mary Oracle by Alana Fairchild really just jumped out at me and said, please, I want to be part of this. I want to be part of the Shame Game series. And it makes so much sense to me because Mother Mary represents so much ease and in particular grace and deep love. And that's what I've needed through this is grace and deep love. And so today's card is number 5, Our Lady of Soul Birth. And when I chose this card, it became more clear to me why it has taken so long to sit down for this episode. Because today I'm really going to talk about a soul birth, mine in the last couple of months, that dying off of parts of myself that just no longer served me, and how dark it got, and how much shame came up. And this card today is really that reminder that, you know, we're each on a journey on this planet to really be held within Mother Mary's loving embrace. And that our journey is her journey. And she accepts all parts of us and all parts of our journey. And today's episode is really me embracing more fully all the parts of myself and all the parts that this journey brings. Yeah. And you know, the journey to the soul, the journey of the soul through a lifetime, it's a gritty one. And it's felt like it's taken some grit. So as we began the Shame Game series, one of the places that had become really clear that I was holding on to shame was around not relinquishing and releasing my New York law license. I haven't practiced up there since 2003, so that's been 15 years. And I had this energy leak. And so at the beginning of these episodes, we do an update on the law license and what's going on. There is actually no real update. I've sent in the paperwork. I will say that for me, it feels like the energy leak of it has been taken care of for for all intents and purposes. There may still be some final things that I need to do, but it's not in my hands right now. I've done everything I can do. And because of that, it feels like whatever energy leak and whatever shame I had around not having taken care of it has really dissipated. And so that's no longer sort of sucking psychic energy away from me. And so I can feel more full and flow that energy into something. It feels like a creation for me, really. And so, yeah, that's the update there. And so in our last episode, I talked about having been at a retreat and really getting a tsunami of shame around that I'm broken. And it felt like the coming together of this series where I'm committing to I'm a no to shame. And, we've talked a lot about, well, duh, Shannon, we're all a no to shame. And yet we carry it around and we carry it in our bodies and we carry it around certain things. And I just found some of those places in me. And so I'm committing to, I'm a no to shame. And then my word for the year is surrender. And these two things come together. And I was hit by just a black wave, like a tsunami of shame. And the biggest part of it was that I'm broken. I knew I was broken. And now everyone's going to know I'm broken and no one's going to love me. And it all sort of came tumbling down around me. And the catalyst for that is that we were doing this exercise at retreat, and there was a question around how I was processing it cognitively. And so there was a suggestion that I go in for a neuropsych evaluation just to see if there was, in particular, something going on cognitively that we would catch early, because my mom has early onset Alzheimer's. And many of you who've been following me a long time know that my mom was diagnosed 8 years ago at 62 with early onset Alzheimer's. She's still with us in body. She's not lucid very often at this point. And when I heard those words, my whole world fell in around me. Everything went black, and it was as if squares of my life that had gone all black, and they were like falling in on each other. And that big shame of I'm broken came up. And I was, well, let's put it very bluntly, I was non-functional for a good week following that. I mean, having a really hard time putting one foot in front of the other. I mean, things had gone really dark and really black, and all my worst fears had come up around, oh my gosh, is something going on with me, with my mind that has been like so good to me, that's taken me through law school, and it feels sharp and witty and all of these things. Was there some cloudiness in there that could be seen in an energetic exercise, but maybe not on the surface yet? And was I going to lose my mind? Was I going to leave my family? How was this all going to play out? And so I decided to have some of the cognitive testing, to have, to go see a neurologist at Duke. And when I called, they literally said, I called on a Monday, and they said to me, you can come tomorrow or we can see you in July. And I said, I will come tomorrow. For those of you whose North Carolina geography is a little iffy, because mine was before I lived in this state. Asheville's about 4 hours from Duke. So I got in the car that Tuesday morning and went. But the why I went feels really important because I'm in this shame of I'm broken. And there's this part of me that wants to just hide from the whole thing, right? Like, okay, so a few people have seen that I'm broken and it's okay. I can cover this up. I'm bright enough to do that. And we're just not going to talk about this anymore. And the really beautiful thing that came out of this is that I don't want to live my mom's story. Right? Like my mom was diagnosed at 62, but she at that point was probably like stage 3. I mean, this had been going on a while. And the truth is, she didn't get to make very many of her own health decisions on this journey because she got into the lack of capacity to do that even as she was being diagnosed. And so like, I don't want to walk her story. I don't want to walk her story into Alzheimer's. I don't want to walk her story of having lack of capacity if that is what's going on. And I realized that like, I don't want to live her story. And there was this part of me, this like little girl part of me that actually had this old story or that this thing was all tangled up in that somehow if I walked her story, that's how I would show her that I love her. Like prove to her in some way. And, by like not stepping into the testing or brushing this under the rug or all of these things, right? And I realized how, I think the word that comes up is silly, how silly that is. How silly that my mom would want me to prove to her that I love her by walking the story that she probably didn't really choose for herself. She would never want that for me. And so, making the choice to go, even though having the testing and seeing the neurologist was scary, was really this pivotal point where I got to shift stepping into my mom's story and get really clear that that's not what I wanted to do. And so I did go to Duke and I did sit with the neurologist and did some, not a full neuropsych evaluation for those that are wondering, that have some medical background and are wondering exactly, but some of the preliminary neuropsych tests that they give to sort of determine if there's something cognitively going on. And for me, I'm thrilled to say that for me, none of that was showing up in the tests. That with my discussion with the neurologist, we spent 90 minutes together between discussion and taking these tests together with her. And she just didn't see anything, which was great, which felt great. And then she did some blood tests around, cholesterol and thyroid and B12. Because I don't go to doctors very much. So I hadn't had labs in a while. So we did a little of that. And yeah, I mean, it was such a relief, as you can imagine, to be like, okay, whew. And I'm thrilled also to not have sort of stewed in that until July. Instead, within a week of retreat, I was with the neurologist. And so what came up at that point was this part of me, and it's this stamp your foot part of me that's like, see, I didn't have to go through that. You know, I didn't have to go through that. That person who said I should do that, they were wrong. And I shouldn't have had to go through that. And so that was really interesting because and that part lives in me. That she is part of me. Oh, see, I didn't have to go through that. You put me through that. The blaming, right? That this was someone else's fault and And so I got to acknowledge that part of me. She lives in me. I felt that. There's still part of me that does still feel that. But here's what became clear to me. There was a time, say 5 years ago, where I would have felt that way, that blaming, see, I didn't have to go through that, she put me through that, all of these things, and that would have been my truth. That would have been the truth. Now, while that still comes up and is still a part of me, and I did have those feelings, that is not the whole truth. That's not where it ends, right? There is so much that has been brought about by the tsunami of I'm broken shame and having to really step into my deepest fears, in particular around my mind and my mom. And it was the card today, Our Lady of Soul Birth. Like, that's how what I feel has happened. Like, I went deep, deep into the dark and I've been rebirthed. As I speak to you today, which is like 2 months later, I'm a different woman in this really deep and profound way. And I feel really differently. And it makes me able to sit here and share my shame with you. And like, there's that part of me that's ashamed that I have that part that say, see, I didn't have to go through that. But instead of hiding her away and being like, oh, that's not who I am anymore, I shouldn't feel that. I do feel that. It's also not my whole truth. There's many, many, many sides of this. And I also see the deep healing that was brought about by this. But it's why I've had a hard time sitting down to record this episode, to share this with you, because I hadn't really realized how much of a soul birth I had been through. Like, I couldn't fully, and I don't even know that I still can fully feel. God, fully is such a big word. I can more feel that in my, like, integrated into my system, this soul birth of mine. And it goes back to that Mother Mary accepts all parts of me and all parts of my journey. And her ask is really that I do the same. And you know what? I am. Even that part of me that's like, see, I shouldn't have had to go through that. It was huge. And so some of the things that came out of this, where I got some real clarity for myself is, like, I'm a no to walking my mother's journey around Alzheimer's. I'm a no to it. And I didn't even realize that there were parts of me that were a yes to it in this twisted way of wanting her to know that I love her, right? The other beautiful thing that came out of this was the alignment of releasing my business with Ava. Those of you that have been following along for a long time know that Ava and I are doing a program right now with a couple of amazing women called Remembering Divine Union. And we had some other projects that we were going to be doing together, offering together. And it became really clear that those were no longer in alignment and that we needed to decouple our business. And I was really, really scared to tell her that. As I went into retreat, I knew and was trying to ignore that. And I thought, oh, we'll do this offering, and then we can decouple at that point, like during the summer. And then that'll feel okay. And, I had all these stories around she's going to feel abandoned and all these things. And I really couldn't see past that. That like, what I really couldn't see past was my fear of losing her. And what really has happened is that as I came back and shared my truth with her, that this was no longer in alignment, she said, oh, I feel that too. I've been feeling that too. And she and I are in a position where our relationship, our friendship, our bond is stronger than ever. And we've been really transparent about how easeful it was to decouple our business. But the lesson for me is around getting into alignment and around part of the catalyst for having that conversation was we were meant to offer a virtual boundaries course, like our calendar, basically. What we had committed to do together was a virtual boundaries course in March and a retreat in April. And when I came back and couldn't hold myself, I, in integrity, could not then open up spaces to call other women in to hold them. It's out of integrity for me. When I was in a time of like not being able to hold myself fully, where I was taking all my energy basically to hold myself. And so all I could, like in that week where things had fallen in and I was in my shame and in my dark and swimming around in my shadow, it was taking all my energy to hold myself, any part of my family, and all of the clients that I had at that moment. And I also tried to be as transparent with them that I could use some holding right now. I was, in particular in the Down and Dirty podcast course, we were having our 6 live session for that, I believe that week, 6 of 7. And I came in and said, I'm having a really hard time holding myself. If we could hold each other today, that would be great. And those women stepped up in ways. It was really beautiful, actually. Yeah, I'm just feeling into it now, the beauty of it. But for me, when I can't hold myself to open up new containers and call more women in where I am promising to hold devotional space, is that's just out of integrity for me. And so I'm a no to that. And so that's where Ava and I started to feel that, yeah, we were going to let that stuff go. And she and I still get together. Well, we're together all the time, but we intentionally get together every it's looking like right now it's been about every couple of weeks to support each other as we build our individual businesses. And that's how we can best serve right now. That's how we can best serve each other, and that's how we can best serve our community. And I think as I speak about like showing up in the live, the 6 live session for the Down and Dirty podcast course, and all of this, and the women that stepped up around me as I was falling apart, I had this really beautiful realization that actually it's not just me that's broken. We're all broken. And that actually, as we open up and share that and stop hiding it from each other, we create compassion and connection. We create compassion for ourselves and for each other, and connection with each other. And there were in particular a handful of women that are really close to me, and each in their own way said what amounted to this: I know you can't see the other side of this right in this moment, but I can. And I'm going to hold that intention for you because I can see it. Like, they could see the soul birth that was going on, and they could see the beauty on the other side. And in that moment, I couldn't see it for myself. And that they were like, and I'm just going to hold this for you. I see it, and I'm going to hold it for you. You can't, I mean, it blows me away. I haven't felt that supported by my community. Like, it was really amazing how much deep community that I have, and that in some ways I'd taken for granted. It's interesting, actually, this week I'm headed to ancestral medicine practitioner training, and I'm going to spend the remainder of this week at retreat for that, to kick that off for the next 5 months of training. And it was another time where, in order to cobble together help in the times when my husband is working for someone for the Rainbow Unicorn to be with, I called on a lot of our community to do that. And I just felt like so deeply supported again. And I think that the time in which I felt so broken and so supported and could feel those connections just getting deeper, and the compassion for myself and others deepening, made me realize how grateful I am as I head into this week on something a little more surface, like figuring out, the day-to-day coverage while I'm away. And so, yeah, that's a really beautiful gift for me. And the last couple of things that have come out of this is it was brought to my attention that who I show up as on social media may not totally sync with who I am in real life. And I think often we're all doing that dance, some, right? How much do I want to share of myself? But I would have told you I was showing up, pretty fully and authentically. And it was brought to my attention that maybe I should take a look at that. And this is a piece that I'm still really unraveling, but there's some work for me around showing up as my presenter and showing up with presence. And my desire and intention is to show up with presence, but I think my presenter can show up. And so I'm feeling into what that looks like for me, And so I haven't, I'm not sure exactly where that has all landed yet. In fact, I wrote that down a couple of weeks ago, and this has me rethinking about it now. And then one of the final things is it's become really clear to me that along with my call to really do some ancestral healing, the place that I had been ignoring is my body. And so I was really called to more attention to my body. And I have seen now locally a somatic experiencing practitioner. I've had 2 sessions with her because it just feels like creating more space in my body into the releasing some of that shame that I've been holding on to is really, really important. There's this sense that I have that I've done a good bit of energetic work and spiritual work, but that the residue of those traumas that I've healed in some ways still really live in my cells. And so the attention to my body has become really important to me. And so those couple of sessions with the somatic experiencing practitioner have been mind-blowing. In fact, we worked on unraveling some things around my solar plexus on the last session, which was about a week ago. And even as I'm speaking about it, I can feel the energy moving through there right now. Like, oh yeah. Yeah. And so if I'd gotten caught in the blaming of, see, I shouldn't have had to go through that because there nothing showed up on the cognitive testing, I would have missed a lot of this beauty for myself. And I'm still, this was such a deep, I mean, it did feel like a tsunami. And so I am still very much unraveling all of this shame and the lessons and the gifts, but the idea of the soul birth really whew, that feels really true for me today. So like what feels true today is that this was a soul birth and a death. But there had to be the death first. Like there had to be the destruction. Shiva reminds us of that, right? Like it has to be destroyed. And I was destroyed. And I don't believe that it always has to be deep down in a dark pit. I don't believe that it always has to be that way or that it can't have ease and grace around it at all, actually. I think that's an old story that we can let go of. But there are times, and this was a time. Yeah. Oh. So thank you for being with me today. And just know that I'm broken. And that if you feel broken, you're in good company. And I'm just unraveling the hold that my shame has had on me. And thank you for coming along on this series as I'm walking my way through that. With the decoupling of Ava and I do have some offerings right now that I'm actually really, really excited about. I am doing, like if you wanted, there are some really fun ways to work with me right now. I have 5 slots left for the Fire Activation series. So this is a deep dive with me, 3 months, 6 one-to-ones, where we work on a project or a life transition. Yeah, and I bring in the intuitive guidance and you get a lot of clarity and action. And this deeper dive was birthed out of the Ignite Your Spark sessions that I did in April. And I am so excited for going deeper. So like I said, at this time, there are 5 spots left for that. And that will start the week of May 23rd, 2018. So in a couple of weeks. And I am also doing a second round of the Down and Dirty podcast course. So if you have been desiring, if it's one of your dreams to podcast, I can help you do it. And that first live course, January through March, was really, really great. And I'm so excited because as much as the Down and Dirty podcast course is about all the tech knowledge that you need to do the podcast and to do it consistently and create workflows and structures, I'm actually really good at that. It also, by being together over 7 weeks, weekly live once a week. So we do 7 live sessions, live group sessions. We get, as the obstacles come up, we get to step through them. So you can really share your voice and express your truth. And the podcast course was so much more than learning to podcast. That's a really interesting thing for me. And I knew it was, but having done it the first time, now I can really feel it when I talk about it. Like I don't just know it's going to be that way, like it really was that way. So let's see. The podcast course will start March 27th. I'm sorry, May. Gosh, we're in May. Where did this year go? May 27th, 2018. And so that'll close on the 23rd. Registration for that. And you can get all the details for that over on the new, improved, looking great, hot new website at honorthefeminine.com. The URL is the same, but I spent some time in the website, so it feels really me and really up to date and really current. And so I'd love for you to check that out. Yeah, like if you're looking for a way to deepen in with me, I would love to connect and talk about it. So yeah, honorthefeminine.com. And thank you again for walking the shame game journey with me. I've gotten such beautiful feedback around it, and it means a lot to me. So, all right. Actually, our next shame game episode will be next week, and it is an interview. I didn't think I was going to do interviews in this, but we're in flow. So I look forward to sharing that with you with Maria Carrillo. All right, everybody. Have a fabulous day.